During the summer break of 1942, members of the University Air Squadron attended summer camp at the airfield. Alan Richards remembers his first visit to RAF Fairwood Common and his meeting with Wing Commander Richard Atcherley, who devised the DREM landing system to aid landings in poor visibility.
As a member of the Squadron University Air Squadron, we were attached, as it were, to Fairwood Common, and we used to visit there, sort of a day visit, and then at Easter and at the summer of '42, we did a summer camp there. My first impressions were talking to various airmen. They sort of looked at us up and down, asked who we were, and we said we hoped to join the Air Force. And that, the general opinion was don't. It was an impression of chaos. People running to and fro, and of course we got no idea why they were running to and fro. And these immense queues for everything. Queues for the cookhouse, queues for the lavatory, queues for everything. And frankly, it could have put one off a bit. But of course, flying, magic. And we did have the opportunity to fly in a Moth Minor, which was a marvellous aircraft. Very, very impressive thing. As far as I recall, it didn't have flaps as we know them. It had this sort of enormous perforated board underneath it. But anyway, it really was an experience. We were there was no sort of instructor as such, but there were Beaufighters there at the time, and any sort of spare Beaufighter pilot who fancied his chances took us up on a, officially air experience flight, but the fellow, rather foolishly, allowed me to take off. And I'll never forget that. Ease the throttle slowly forward, keeping straight with the rudder. And it very well went down the Gower Coast, totally unknown view, from the seaward, looking inward. And he did a thing that a lot of the boys I discovered did at Fairwood, was with a strong wind from the sea to approach the cliff top, very slightly below cliff top level, relying on the updraft to carry you over. Some of them were fairly laid-back fellows. During summer camp at Fairwood Common, we saw quite a lot of, I think then it was Sir Richard he wasn't Sir then, Richard Atcherley, who was wing commander at the time. Of course, he was succeeded by David Atcherley, his twin and indistinguishable brother. And he used to take a lot of interest in us lads. And I remember he asked me, why did I want to become a pilot in the Air Force? Well, I didn't like to tell him the truth, which was I thought everybody wanted to be a pilot. And joining the Air Force was the only way I could do it for nothing. So I said the usual sort of things and this sort of thing, and he looked at me very hard and he said, the only chance you've got of sitting in the pilot seat of a Royal Air Force aircraft is that you are the best man we can find to be there, and that's something that's been with me all my life. There was a rather amusing answer. Another question one of my colleagues asked was, why can't we have tricycle undercarriages like some of the American aircraft are having now? And actually rounded on him and said, whatever should we want tricycle undercarriages for? And he said, well, they're easy to land, aren't they? The Americans might require them, but a pilot in the Royal Air Force is so adept at every sort of manoeuvre that landing a tailwheel aircraft presents no problems whatsoever. Well, in relation to the DREM lighting system, it was installed at Fairwood Common. There weren't many installations. It was rather expensive, and of course it was rather attractive to intruder aircraft, so it tended to be not used in the south and east of England, and was largely confined to night fighter stations. It consisted of a circle of lights, I think poles 10 or 12 feet high, with what probably looked like the sunken runway lights were stuck on the top of a pole. and they formed this circuit I think about 4 miles diameter around an airfield, so that you're looking for the particular airfield. Remember, there was no radar. Direction finding was very hit or miss. Even the radio. I mean, 1940, the Battle of Britain, there were single-channel radios, you see, and it was only really 42, the 8-channel radio came in. And if you were away from your base, you didn't have the crystals in your set for this particular place you're looking for. So you flew and you found these lights, which gave you a much bigger target than just the flare path. And you immediately turned right and followed the lights around, kept the lights on your left, and followed round in a left-hand circuit until you found a digraph, which in the case of Fairwood Common was FC, and that was sighted above Ilston, behind Park Mill there. And you continued on, and where approached the active runway, there was a branch off, rather like the cat's eyes go off at a motorway exit. You exited down this one, that took you right to the funnel and to the threshold. I never used Fairwood Common DREM. I used it actually some year later at Cologne, by which time they'd got neon lights, sodium lights, and of course absolutely great in fog. And I had to fly into Cologne with no radio communication with them, in very bad visibility, and of course it was absolutely magic. You just sort of flew in the general direction, and when you saw a sodium light, you turned right, you saw another one, great, you're there, and you just fly around, you see the digraph, CL, and follow the lead-in. Marvellous system. I do recall when we were at summer camp, there was no night flying, everything was very still and quiet, and we were woken by an aircraft, a single-engine aircraft, it was a Hurricane, taking off, and it was one of the Atchley brothers. Apparently they had some kind of telepathic communication, or allegedly so, and the other brother, who's out the south of England, apparently it had some kind of mishap, and he in the night became aware of that and got out the duty crew and got out his black Hurricane and went down to the south coast to see what trouble was with his brother. Quite a remarkable thing.
Alan Richards became a sergeant pilot in the Royal Air Force, flying master tugs towing Hotspur gliders, which were used to train glider pilots on the run-up to the Allied assaults in northwest Europe in 1944. Interestingly, David Atchley succeeded his twin brother Richard as station commanding officer in April 1942. The photograph shows Group Captain David Atchley with officers and committee members of 2 and 5 Squadron Air Training Corps, including the Swansea Squadron's commanding officer, Sir Arthur Whitton Brown.